given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, me and Gary York have a great discussion today. We're going to talk about making sergeant. Here is what you need to know, what we expect from our frontline supervisor. I believe some facilities don't have sergeants, so I'm basically referring to the frontline supervisor. So in this video, if you hear me say sergeant, just in case you don't have a sergeant, I mean frontline supervisor. It's that first step into the supervisory role. I think it's going to be a great dialogue, something that I think I can get a little personal with. I believe Gary has a great perspective as well. And I think the expectation that we're going to try to provide is going to be from bottom up and top down. And I think it's going to be unique. I really do. I think there's some perspectives here that you guys have never heard before on this channel. Hey, Gary, man, what's going on? How's your book's going? I believe you have a new book coming out in the market. What's going on?
How you doing, Anthony? Thank you for having me. Yes, I was reading it when we were talking on the phone earlier, and it's called The Toughest Job. The editor wanted me to read it one more time, and she's going to get on it tomorrow. I'm thinking it's going to be out next week, but I don't want to say anything just yet. But it's called The Toughest Job, and it's about the things that correctional officers face daily. You know, all the things you face, and we'll talk more about it as soon as I'm sure we're done editing, and we're going to get that thing up live on Amazon, and then I'll spill some more beans about it.
And how's your YouTube channel going? True Crime Stories, Gary York.
I get requests. Just had a request, and it really caught me by surprise. They wanted to know about inmates practicing witchcraft in prison. And, you know, I never thought about that. We have them in prisons and jails. I never thought about doing a video on it. But when somebody requests something, I always try my best. And I threw one out there today on inmates and witchcraft behind bars.
I'll be honest with you. Most of my growth professionally has become from the requests that we get every day. I mean, it's just, You never know what you know until someone asks you a question. Then you kind of got to research it, but it's just always good information. And thank God we have a community that is involved like that. It always helps us grow. Now, guys, we have two sponsors. All right, one sponsor is Guardian FID. So today's video is sponsored to you by Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based businesses and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And my other sponsor is American Military University. If you guys get a chance and you're seeking higher education and you want to bring experience into the classroom, when we go to our sponsor, you'll see a commercial. That commercial is from American Military University. They've been supporting me in Tier Talk for many years. They believe in what we do in corrections. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women who work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We are going to go to our sponsor, and when we come back, let's talk about I just made sergeant. Here's what you need to know. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
And we are back. All right, guys, this is going to be a very interesting topic. Again, we're going to provide two perspectives. I believe the perspective is going to come from the bottom up, and it's also going to come from the top down, so management looking down. I do believe it's rather fluid, so as we're discussing certain things, you may be able to see the perspective from both sides, but for the most part, it's definitely a needed dialogue. I've been doing some dialogue recently on some leadership, and I'm on level 4, I believe. I'm working on that now in the John Maxwell series. So I thought right off the bat, this could be a great topic that just kind of coincides with what we're doing and keeps that momentum going. So right off the bat, Gar, when you cross into being a sergeant or that frontline supervisor, so this could be, applied to the civilian side of things, maybe. You know, again, you're talking about now you're crossing into that responsibility of other workers. For me, this was the biggest jump. Now, mind you, I have continued to climb in my career. I'm now on the administrative level. But I think the hardest jump and the jump that you have to get most adjusted to is that first jump. That jump that takes you from that frontline employee to that first line supervisor, because now you become that conduit, if you will. You're the messenger from, you know, top down and bottom up. But Gary, so I mean, in your career, Gary, we know we have lateral moves. There's a bunch of different ways you can move, but when you jump up from frontline to frontline supervisor, to me, that's the biggest jump that you'll make in your career, only because to me, it's the biggest adjustment you have to make. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the one, in my opinion, that'll make you or break you. Now, in the Florida Department of Corrections, I was promoted 3 times, but I took a little different avenue. When I first got promoted to sergeant, I was in the United States Army. And, you know, the feeling was, okay, wait a minute. I can't do some of the things anymore. I can't go out with these guys and these girls. But you can, if you do things the right way, you can still have off-duty relationships with the people you're going to supervise. But one thing that I think is very important, the way you conduct yourself along the way on those years before you get promoted has a big impact on the way your subordinates will look at you. So when I got promoted to sergeant, my platoon sergeant said, now listen, these are the very people that you've been with for 3 years, you know, having barbecues with, playing sports with, but now you're their boss. So I believe the way you presented yourself the first 3 or 4 years being on the front line will help you a lot with the way they respect you as a leader. And it is a funny feeling because now you are in a different position and you have to perform your duties professionally and ethically and no favoritism.
You know, guys, when you know that you're going to make this a career, and I always say when you know you're going to make this career, but guys, if you're entering this profession, always be professional. But let me just heighten something on this part. When this is a career, and you know what I mean by careers, this is what you're going to live off of. You're going to move up and you're going to see how far you can go. You need to know that when you come in, you have to be professional right from the get-go. Have that level of integrity. Because when you start to move up, if you were a shit officer and you were lazy and you know, just weren't who you needed to be as an officer or as that frontline professional, then right off the bat, jumping into the supervisory role is going to be a hard adjustment for you because people are not going to see you as that professional. In some cases, when you go to push what needs to be done, you're a hypocrite, right? Because, hey, how are you going to get me for sleeping? Remember when you slept? Or remember when you were this? So for me, there is that adjustment. So what makes the adjustment easier at first is just being the professional right from the get-go the moment you enter this profession. Be who you need to be. Connect yourself with like-minded people. And the first jump that you make from frontline to supervisor, that should ease that adjustment. Now, mind you, there's still other adjustments, but this is one adjustment we can minimize right from the get-go. So Gar, being professional from day one, does that not help the adjustment into that supervisory role right off the bat?
It helps a lot. You know, when I now look at one of my frontline people and say, hey, this is what we've got to do, and this is what we're going to do today. I don't want them to look back and say, well, who are you to say that? You're the one that used to shoot spitballs through a straw at the inmates when they walk by. Or as you said, you're the one that used to sleep on duty. You know, remember, if you're going to make this a career, be professional from day one. Because all your coworkers and peers they're watching you all the way, and they don't forget. They don't forget what happened 3-4 years ago. Hey, we all make mistakes. We all do something wrong from time to time. Come on, we're human beings. As long as you're not doing it intentionally and making a fool of yourself, because you want to be the leader that people want to follow, not who people want to shy away from. You want to be proud to say they're following me, and you want to give them the same respect back and say, I want you guys to have a great future. And, you know, Anthony, many times those people, you may make sergeant first, but the next thing you know, one of these other folks is a captain now and in charge of you. You want everybody to be successful.
Yeah, and guys, just to let you guys know, being professional from the get-go, and then when you cross into that supervisory position, that's going to bring about trust, both from management and, yes, from your front line. Believe it or not, your people want to be next to someone who they feel they can trust and who is successful. You know, they may like you, but if you're not successful, if you're not doing what needs to be done, if they can't trust you, they're not going to be willing to follow you. Like Gary says, I mean, yeah, you may want to be that supervisor that's everybody's friend, but does that make you credible? Credible is the outcome of you doing what needs to be done. In the end of the day, it's you making sure, you know, your staff's getting home safely, the inmates are all good. That's the end of a very productive day. That's how we succeed. That's who staff that are highly professional want to follow. They don't want to follow the joke, you know, the jokester or the person that doesn't take anything seriously or the lenient supervisor who doesn't sweat nothing. I mean, even though if there are those that want to follow them, it's not going to be the ones that want to achieve, the ones that want to be successful. You know, when you want the right people to follow you, which are the people that want to be productive, the people that want to succeed and be successful, then you yourself have to reflect that level of success, that level of productivity. Because if you're not a reflection of that, then sure, maybe they like you, but they're not going to follow you. They're not going to follow you because at the end, we all want to be part of a winning team. Now, for me, real quick, and I'll share a quick little story. So I worked in a female facility, you know, starting my career. So when I made rank, when I became sergeant, I did have to cross into a new facility. Now, the pro, well, first of all, let me talk about the con about going into a new facility. You know, you have to start everything over again. You know, learning the layout, learning the culture of that facility, that dynamic. And that's a lot, especially when you're trying to adjust to that supervisory role, because now you have other things that are connected to that, including I got to learn my supervisory role in a strange land. You know, I haven't been there before, so it compounds. But to be honest with you, that is actually better. Because on the flip side, you could get promoted in a facility in which you were an officer, but now you have the relationship with that front line and they know you as an officer. So sometimes it's hard for you to adjust into that supervisory role because they may not be willing to put you there just yet. And what I mean by that is, sure, maybe they're happy that you got up there, but you're still Gangi. You're still that officer, you know, and sometimes they'll be quick to remind you of that when they feel that, yeah, maybe you're taking your position just a little bit too serious, you know? And again, we all have an interpretation for that. So crossing into that new prison that I went to, it gave me a chance to adjust into the supervisory role because the officers that I was working around only saw me as a supervisor. So it was great to be able to have a different dynamic as opposed to me, you know, being promoted at the same facility and them seeing me as who I was in the past and having to work with them to move me up. In this case, this was just about me. This was just about me adjusting the role. If I was still at the other facility, this would be more about the environment adjusting into that role, which makes it harder for me because the environment's not conducive to me adjusting into that role. So Gary, again, sometimes it happens. You're getting ready to move up and they could say, hey, you get that choice. Do you want to work at the facility you're at? Now, guys, for jails, maybe a little different. I'm talking about the prison side where there's multiple prisons in the state. So obviously there are going to be some people that just don't have that option. I get that. So again, that's something that you're going to have to deal with that environment and still be able to grow yourself. And it's good for us to recognize that. I mean, some people may not realize what's holding them back. So just to be mindful of that, the environment sometimes can hold you back if all they do is see you as an officer. But for those that are able to have the opportunity to pick, should I stay here where I'm comfortable, where I know everyone, or should I try something new? I would recommend trying a new environment, because that gives you a chance to focus on you, because the environment itself only sees you as that supervisor. And another thing, for the officers that may transfer into that prison later on that know you as an officer, they're the ones that have to adjust, not you, because the officers that you work with now only see you as that supervisor. But Gary, if you have a chance, old location, promote where you know everything and know everyone, or let's try something new and let's really develop as a supervisor. What's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right. In the jail, you make sergeant, you can be put on another shift, but everybody knows that even when you put on another shift, you're going to end up with people that you worked with before, because the shifts rotate. They have shift bids. It's hard to get away from the people you work with. Now, both times I got promoted to sergeant and then to staff sergeant, I was in the same location. I didn't have that luxury of going to a new place until after my tour was up and I was shipped out. But both my promotion, sergeant and staff sergeant, were at the same location. So I had the same people, the same shift. But it was okay. I worked it out and handled it, and everything went smooth. But I think you're right. I think if you get promoted and you have the opportunity to start fresh with a new group, it does make it easier. These people, you still have to set the boundaries. You still have to let them know where you are and how you are as a supervisor, but it's so much easier to start with people that don't know you. And I agree with you on that one.
Hey, Gary, real quick, did you find yourself when you worked around as a supervisor around people you knew, did you find yourself kind of caught up in situations where they would try to say, hey, Gary, remember when you're an officer and we did this and we did that, like kind of them pulling you back a little bit?
I'll tell you, thank you for bringing that up. I had to be in charge of my shift's vacation logbook. So you know how that vacation is. Very important for us in our business of corrections or in the military. So I'm passing the vacation book around, and somebody who had more seniority already took the week that this other person took. And I get this guy comes up to me later in the shift, wants to talk to me in private. Come on, man, you know me, I have this sport, I like to scuba dive, I like to do this, and I really need that week off, and you know how much that means to me. I said, I couldn't do it. I said, look, we have to go by seniority. That's the way we're doing it. I hand the book to the highest seniority, and then we go right on down the line. We're going to stick with seniority. And I mean, this guy was upset with me for a week. You could just read it all over him. But when it was over and said and done, he came back and apologized to me and said he was sorry, and I said, well, you have to understand, the position I'm in. It's my job to treat everybody fair and to do this the way we do it. And I cannot veer from that to do you a favor, because now I've done you a favor because we were buddies when we were on the floor together. I'm going to lose respect from the others. So thanks for bringing that up, Anthony.
Yeah, I want to, like, what I do with this, guys, obviously, is when I say something, I love to see what it applied. So I know it happened to me, so I'm pretty sure it definitely happened to Gary, and I'm pretty sure it happens to a lot of people that are crossing into that road. And what people don't realize is that does kind of prevent you a little bit from taking that next step, that where you need to be to kind of embrace that that supervisory role. Now, I will tell you one thing. I did transition from from a female jail to a male jail, a female prison to a male prison. And I was concerned, a little nervous on how I would deal with my first code with men. And reason being, guys, I've never worked in a male facility. It's a different dynamic. It's a totally different dynamic. And now I'm put in a position where I'm not just responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my staff. I'm responsible for the inmate. So that's a lot for someone that has never really, dealt with this code with the men. But I knew that when it happened, and it would, that I had to show some level of confidence. I had to show it. I had to prove that I would be productive. I had to show that I was able to do the job. And I waited for that moment. I was anxious. And the funny thing is, even though I was anxious, I had anxiety, I still wanted the moment to happen. Because I knew this could be one of the steps that would help solidify my relationship with my people, the people that I'm going to be supervising. Now, again, guys, handling a code, handling an extreme situation, maintaining your cool, making sure that the situation gets resolved and, you know, you're active, making those decisions. To me, that's the biggest way you're going to earn respect from that front line and also from management. Because, again, doing this shows that you can be trusted, that you're credible, that you're going to step up to the challenge. So everybody's always waiting for that moment, that test. I mean, you know, you could work in a facility for many years and maybe not have a code and everybody thinks you're the best supervisor, but all of a sudden shit hits the fan and that's who, you know, that's when you discover who this person really is. You know, that's it. You have to get tested. And the funny thing is part of it is like, oh, I don't want to get tested. But then for the achievers, the go-getters, we do want that ball. Because there is stuff that you want to prove. Because again, that test is what's going to earn your trust with both levels, the management side and the front line. So when the moment happened, and I can't be too specific, but I did what I was expected to do, you know, kept the balance of safety, but I also worked with a very professional staff that in the process of dealing with this inmate who was a threat to them, they never became a threat to the inmate. I'm going to say that again because I don't think the public understands what I just said. And this is what makes it difficult to work in corrections. This should be a quote in Gary's book. But our job literally is, even when the inmate's a threat to us, we are never a threat to them. Our job is always about the preservation of life. And when I was involved in that first code, I saw nothing but professionalism. And it was such a, you know, I didn't know what I would have to worry about on my first code. My biggest thing was, when do I tell the officers it's enough? Like, am I supposed to allow them to get something off? Or, you know, again, I know it's not supposed to happen. But now I have to motivate myself and jump right in and say, yo, but I didn't have to worry about that first time. All I saw was officers that were professional, that responded to the code, did what had to be done, and the process safely securing the inmate and handling the inmate, even after what the inmate did, with respect. So when I saw that level of professionalism and I saw what this staff was able to do, then I knew what we were capable of doing. So that became my standard for every code. Because I knew what we could do. I knew what we were capable of doing. So I was blessed to have that type of response. Because then I knew what it was that I need to do. Because if they could do that, then my job as a leader, in order for me to grow, is to be that. And then when I'm dealing with new people who may not know the way, then it's my job to get them to be that. But again, guys, they helped me grow. That's one thing as a leader, guys, you're always growing. And that helps me as I grow to grow the team. But Gary, being tested, being challenged, and then to know that you're working with those professionals. In my mind, when you have a leader that doesn't step up, that doesn't produce, you have no credibility with the team, and you definitely have no credibility with management. Would you agree?
Well, I agree. Never lead your people to trouble. Lead them to safety. And unfortunately, over the years, we have seen sergeants, even a lieutenant on shift, even a captain, not stop their officers from going too far. And these officers are all watching, you know, is he or she going to correct me, or are they going to allow me to go on? And then they start to get this mindset of how you operate. You definitely don't want to operate into the area that leads your officers into trouble. You want to always lead your officers in the right path. So when you tell them that's enough, stop, pick the inmate up, let's take the inmate to medical, and don't allow any further use of force. Stop it when you need to stop it. You have just shown your front line that how to make an ethical decision. You know, we have ethical dilemmas all the time in our job. Now, you as an officer on the front line have to deal with ethical dilemmas and make the right choice. But also as a sergeant, and you're on my team, I have to make an ethical, I have ethical dilemmas, and I have to make sure that we're all safe. We're all doing the right thing to the best of our ability. We're always going to get Monday morning quarterbacked. We could do everything we think properly. We're still going to get questioned about things. But let me tell you, that's when the leader knows you did the things right and you back up your people. You fight for your people. You tell your higher management, we did the right thing. We did this, this, and this. And I stand by my people because I was right there with them.
And guys, by the way, as a supervisor, especially a frontline supervisor, they need to see you involved. You're never going to get their respect if you're not involved, if you're not doing what needs to be done as well. I mean, I think that's the key. I mean, so I think when you first become a supervisor, yeah, delegation's key and stuff like that. But I think there is going to be some level of hands-on experience to some extent. Again, obviously within your role. But you're definitely going to have to lead by example. People do what they see, not really do what you say. They do what they see. So it's hard when you have people that, you know, kind of like a bad parent that says kind of do what I say, but don't do what I do. Kids model what you do. They don't care about what you say. So same thing here with the staff that we lead. You're saying one thing, but doing something else. You know, at that point, you're a reflection of where they need to be. Technically, as a leader, you're a reflection of their potential. So at all times, you want to make sure that you're heading them to where they need to be, and especially during those emergent situations. Part of the confidence that they have in you is what they see you doing, not what they hear you saying. It's what they see you doing. That's where the biggest part of confidence comes in between frontline and the supervisor. And again, just the same thing, management to the supervisor. I don't care so much what you say unless you've earned it by what you do. If that makes any sense. I'll start believing what you say to me when I start seeing that your actions reflect what it is that you're saying. And again, do you care about the well-being of your team? Do you care about the well-being of the inmates? Are you here to help us move forward? Or are you here just to kind of collect a paycheck? One thing about a supervisor, a frontline supervisor, that I would like to think we don't want is someone that is selfish, is someone that looks to only see why. I don't even think management wants that. Good management doesn't want that. Good management wants that supervisor to translate the concerns of the people up and to translate our responses back down. We want you to be that bridge. But we don't want someone that's just selfish, that only thinks about themselves. Because believe it or not, guys, when you have someone that's selfish and only cares about themselves, the message that they deliver, it's not beneficial to the team. It's not beneficial to management. It's beneficial to them. I mean, I've seen good supervisors, when they get a message from management that they feel that their front line may not like, they'll think about so many ways they could deliver it, just so they can try to keep a peace and try to keep those people motivated. Because as a good leader, you're not manipulating people to do what you want them to do. You are motivating. You are influencing. So in order to keep that, one thing is about your reputation, right? I mean, am I exhausting every effort to make sure the front line has a voice? But also when I have to do something, pass something down, I want my frontline to know that I made an effort. That comes with the reputation. Because once they know that you're going above and beyond, they're going to know that when you have to, give them an order that they may not be okay with, they're going to know that you made an effort to speak on their behalf, and they're still going to be motivated to carry that out because of their trust in you. So you being that messenger, you being able to carry that message from both sides and getting people willing to do it really is a reflection of how they see you. Because here's the funny thing, guys, we could play that positional role. I'm a sergeant, you have to get that done. Just like when you have a manager that says, I'm a manager to the sergeant, you better get this out to your people. But that's never long lasting. That's for the moment. That's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for people that want to do it for the longer term because they believe in the person that's giving out that message. You know why? Because they believe in the values and the beliefs of the person that is leading them. And I really have seen some really good supervisors in an effort to translate a message from top to bottom, or even bottom up, either way, really think about how they have to get it done. And the sad thing is, Gary, and I think you'll see this, and hopefully I'm hitting some points for you here. When management has to pass a message, and you're just that positional leader, well, not a problem, I'm a sergeant, I'll just pass it. I don't care if they have any conflict to it. You won't get the respect, obviously. I'm a sergeant, you're going to listen to me, and I'm going to carry the same, power that I feel management's throwing down my way. But when management trusts you and you become that person like, hey, Gangi, we have to get this across, and I know you have good respect with your people. Can you help us with this? And the message has to get across. Then you take your time, you deliver it with a finesse, and management benefits from your relationship with the people you have. Now, on the adverse, when you have a message that has to travel up, and let's say it's a message that, is a bit hard to express, that same thought process should occur. There should be that same finesse. But sometimes you have supervisors, well, it's just a frontline worry. I don't really have to, I'm good. I'll just tell them no and whatever it is. You know why? Because they don't have the courage to speak for that front line. So they kind of make the pretend effort. Wasn't an exhausted effort. And okay, I'll just tell them I tried, and they try to get by on this facade that I'm really making the effort. But in the end, guys, I'm going to trust and believe that front line will see right through you, because there'll always be that one supervisor who you're going to see is struggling to help that front line. And they're there trying to do what they can, and you're sitting there with no concerns in the world. So again, that translation of message is so important, because that, as a sergeant or as a frontline supervisor, that is what builds trust between management and the lower level, and the lower level and management. That sergeant, that frontline supervisor is so important to connecting that bridge. And if you don't treat that frontline supervisor with that respect, knowing that they're the ones that build that bridge and keep that level of trust, and you don't have the right person in the position to do that, you're killing your agency. What's your thoughts? Would you agree with that, Gary?
The front line in any agency is the backbone of the agency. If you don't get trust from the front line, they can make or break you, and they can make or break the upper management. That's what I always believed. We had a person, I won't say the rank, because there's a lot of people that watch my videos and your videos who work with me, but this person would always come to briefing and say, I fought like hell for you guys, but they're going to make us do this bullshit anyway, but I fought like hell. And this went on for everything that he had to pass down. And I shouldn't have said he, but anyway. And we all started getting that, turning our heads at each other like, oh my God, he's so full of bull. He probably, we got to the point where we didn't believe that he fought at all for us, because we called him a yes man. Let's just say it, call it cards the way they are. We used to call him the yes man with no backbone. But as you said earlier, the frontline people, there's so many of them that don't choose to be a supervisor. They're happy where they are. They could be great supervisors. You think they don't see through this stuff? So the way you carry that message from the front line to management, and from management back to the front line, tells a great deal about you and what kind of leader you are. It tells a lot. It tells a big story. And upper management can see through you the way you're delivering the message from the front line. And when you go back to deliver a message to the front line, they can see through you as well. My policy was just be honest. This is the orders from the top. We discussed it, but we're going to do it. That's what we're here to do. And that's our job. And this is what we signed up for. Maybe that's old school, but I think we need a little more of that in there. And the front line will respect you much more. And if you have a whiner in the front line, just say, you know, I'm sorry, I'm old school. I say, I could take them to the side. I wouldn't do it in front of anybody. Let them whine during the briefing or during the discussion. And then when everybody's gone, say, Officer Jones, stand back just a minute. What's the problem? I just told you we're going to have to do this. This is the way it is. This is what we're hired to do. Why are you whining? Why are you complaining at briefing? You know, and then we'll have a little one-on-one talk. That's another thing they respect too. Don't call your people out in front of everybody. Wait till it's all over. Bring them in alone. There's so many ways you communicate yourself to these people at any level, which will determine to them what kind of leader you are.
Yeah, you know, guys, as a sergeant or as a frontline supervisor, that is when you're the closest to the people that you are responsible for. Okay, so yes, guys, in my position, there are certain rights I have, which means that, yes, you are going to have to respect my level of authority. But in the end, that's only going to get me so far if I do it by rights. But as a supervisor, as I said, you are responsible for your people. So as a sergeant, that's when you're the closest to that front line, which means that you're walking alongside them. They're growing with you. And then you get some people that are looking to impress. And they'll say that, yeah, I'm looking to impress when I become a supervisor. When it comes to impress, that's from a distance. You're looking to make an impact. That's when you're up close. You know, so if I'm walking next to my people, it's because I'm looking to make an impact. But when I start moving myself ahead and further, and my people are all the way back here, that's where you become selfish. And that's where you become, I'm looking to impress. At the end of the day, guys, your job as that frontline supervisor is to move everyone up with you. And for those that don't want to take that journey with you, got to start moving them away. Because this is about creating momentum, about getting the job done. And in the end, your job right now is, this is your first step into that supervisory role. Your job is to do what you can to grow the team. And you do that by, one, you're constantly growing, which, you know, moves you, which moves the team up, but also to connect on commonalities, similar values, similar beliefs. So you all are traveling up together. And at no point are you ever alone looking down thinking that you're king of the hill. It's not about being king of the hill, because if you're on that mountain alone, then you're doing it wrong. Your job is to go down, meet your people, and bring them up. And I used to, and I'm sure Gary gets that. Gary, sometimes you have people that look to move up just to impress. It's not about impressing. It's about having that impact. And Gary, to me, the best way to make an impact, would you agree, is walking alongside your people and not in front of them?
Right. I think we've all in our careers somewhere saw someone who got promoted and spent more time. I mean, don't get me wrong, a sergeant and above, they have to have some time in their office. They have to read reports and write reports and verify and approve reports. And yes, that's part of the job, but never come out to see the people. It's like, I'm a sergeant now. They're already in their office studying the lieutenant's exam, and they haven't been a sergeant but 6 months. What does that tell you? Hey, this stuff has happened. There's folks out there that agree with me. This stuff has happened. They're trying to see how high they can climb up the ladder, and they're not out there with their people, you know. And unfortunately, sometimes these people slip through the cracks because they're pulling the wool over management's eyes somehow, some way. Probably because the front line they have is so good and so strong, they're still carrying the weight without a leader, making this sergeant look like they're good. But it's a shame that happens sometimes, you know, and you lose all respect from your front line.
Yeah, and guys, from the management perspective down, and by the way, I think what management expects, what I'm going to say next, is still running parallel with team growth. But one of the things that we expect is for you to do the right thing, even if it comes to having to discipline an employee. Again, sometimes being a supervisor, you're not always going to be liked. And sometimes you can have that employee that stagnates growth or it's just a risk. And there's only so many times you can give that person your time before it's like, I got to do something because this person's a liability. So my trust as manager to my frontline supervisor is, yes, we exhausted all effort, but are you willing to step up? And, you know, if I have a liability, are you willing to take that step? And if discipline is needed, are you willing to discipline that individual? Because that's sometimes the hardest thing about becoming a supervisor is that level of discipline, because sometimes we look at that as a failure in ourselves as well, especially if you are a good leader. And that's fine, I get it. But there is a thing now that I learned recently about candor versus care. I care for everybody in my front line, but my candor is what directs our relationship. And the moment I let the care supersede my ability to be truthful with them is the moment that we stop growing and the moment I could put others at risk. At the end of the day, guys, we have to do what's correct for the team. And that goes beyond our personal relationships. If we have people that are not cutting their own weight, but they're a friend of mine, doesn't matter. You're going to start cutting your own weight, or these are the actions I'm going to take. Because I'm trying to produce a team that's successful. I'm trying to produce a team that wants to be highly productive. And the last thing I need is someone that's stopping us from getting there, but more importantly, me stopping us from getting there because I'm not doing what's expected of me. So, Gary, would you agree that that level of responsibility when it comes to dealing with those employees that are just not stepping up, that are just not, you know, pulling their own weight? I know it's hard, but it has to be done for the benefit of the team and ultimately the benefit of the agency, because in the end, we do have to produce.
You have a duty to protect everyone and keep them safe. If you have one person slacking up, constantly doing something wrong, that one person in a critical situation could cause other staff to get hurt. It is not only caring, it's your duty to straighten that person up, not only for the team, but for themselves, because they could get themselves hurt. So if you're a good leader, you're watching, you're seeing who's doing things right, you're seeing people who need a little more training, you'll help them out, maybe a little more advice, and then you'll see the ones who are just flat out falling on their face. If you stand back and let these things happen, that cancer will continue to grow, and you've lost the respect of your good teammates, and you've lost the safety and security for your shift. So you have to take care of these things, and you can't be scared. Sure, you'll start with maybe a verbal consultation, but then you'll have to move forward if things don't get better and have to hit the paper. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and part of that is I think management wants your help to carry out a vision, but they also need you to create the culture, the behavior to do that. They don't want people that are resistant. So your job is, again, to translate that vision, that message, that belief, that value. And if you don't have that, or you yourself don't believe in it, then your people are not going to believe in it. So one of the hardest parts of being that sergeant, that frontline supervisor, is creating the culture that accepts that vision. And again, you know, it should be a vision that has integrity, it's professional, and kind of builds ultimately on, you know, what we do: care, custody, and control. So again, these are just some tidbits I wanted to get out there. Again, it's not easy to be a supervisor, frontline supervisor. It's the biggest jump you're going to make. One of the things here, guys, is that in the end, it's about responsibility. So if you're looking to become a supervisor because it's about money, or, you know, the power of authority that you think you have, is that power of authority, tremendous responsibility, you know. And if you're not willing to take it and be responsible for, take that level of responsibility, you know, have that responsibility for other people, you're not ready to be a supervisor. You can grow into this role, don't get me wrong. And it takes time. But again, all leaders grow. All because I got the position doesn't mean I'm a leader yet. I'm going to grow into it. Sergeant, frontline, you're going to grow into it. So you can always become ready. But if you're entering that role not ready to take on that responsibility of others, then you're never going to grow into that role. Because that's all that really is when it comes to being that frontline supervisor, that responsibility of others. And literally, guys, it's a heavy toll. But that's why it comes with being a supervisor. That's the thing that most people forget, guys, is they look at everything else and they forget that they have a responsibility to, one, the people they supervise, but also a responsibility to the agency. You know, where are we headed? Are you going to take us there? You know, because this is where we're going. How are you going to get us there? That's a great question to ask yourself before stepping into this position. This is what the agency wants. How am I going to help them get there? Hey, Gary, anything you'd like to say in closing?
Just want to say being a leader is not an easy job. If you're going to be a good leader, it's not an easy job. When the shift is gone, you're still working on the schedule for the next day. You're still trying to get the vacation book caught up. You're still working on the reports they turned in as that you approved at the end. Now you've got to get them signed off and put in. You're getting phone calls at home after duty. Your sleep as a sergeant will be a lot less sleep than when you were working the front line. And I think a lot of people forget about all these things that the sergeants have to go through. So if you want to be a sergeant, be ready to work, but be a good leader. And even though that makes it harder, that's what we want. Thank you very much for your service.
Hey guys, so this was a quick dialogue. It was a good dialogue. But I want people to know, like, we could have done an episode that was totally about surface stuff that most people already know when they're crossing into that supervisory position. I think this was a deep level discussion that kind of makes you begin to ask the right questions before you take on that level of responsibility. And again, being that frontline supervisor, that's the biggest jump you'll ever make. So are you ready? And this video can help answer some of those questions and maybe help you become ready. But as always, guys, the show is taped up. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.